Hi, I'm Jim Sorensen. I'm a writer for Transformers with IDW Comics and Fun Publications, and you're listening to Marku 42.
Welcome to Marku 42's universe here on ODYSY Radio, the Geekcast Radio Network, Marku42.com, and all around the interweb thingy. I'm your host, Mark Baumgarten, and we've got a special show for you all about 77. Oh, that's a lucky number to me. It's 2 sevens. And with me, of course, we have my co-host,
Vicky Jakubowski.
Vicky, how's it going?
It's a-going.
It's a-going. All right. Everything cool with the weather out there in Nevada? Did I say it right? Nevada?
No, it's Nevada.
Nevada.
But it's unseasonably warm. It's about 10 degrees warmer than it normally is this time of year. I should have snow in my backyard, but I had to open the windows and put the fans on.
Okay. Well, like I said, we have a special show all about The 77 and Blazer. They're two great anthology comics out there. And our guests today are...
Steve MacManus.
Hey, Steve. How you doing today?
I'm very pleased to be on your show, guys.
It's nice to meet you.
Yeah, same here. I'm sorry to hear it's very hot in Nevada. It's bloody freezing here, if you excuse my language. You can bleep that out.
No, bloody's fine. Bloody's fine.
Yeah.
No one knows what that is.
Yeah, never mind. I'm not going to say that.
So tell us a little about yourself, Steve.
Well, I was the editor of a British comic called 2000 AD.
Woohoo!
Yeah, between progs, and we all know what a prog is. It's an issue between progs 78 and 500. That's about 8.5 years, guys.
Yeah.
And then I left, and I had the good fortune some years later to bump into the 77 crew, Bully and Benksy, who convinced me to let them turn some scripts I've written in this book into comics.
He's holding up the sheer glam conspiracy, folks. You can't see it. We're on audio, but thank you.
Yeah.
You also wrote the Mighty One.
I did. And the Mighty One is my autobiography in terms of my life in 2000 AD.
Yeah, I actually just got that on Kindle and read it and totally loved it. And we may have some questions about that later on.
Sure. It's interesting because we have a program here called Desert Island Discs.
Uh-huh.
Do you know that radio
Yes,
program?
Yes, I do.
And
that's basically, folks, if you don't know, that's a famous person tells about the 5 records they would take on a deserted island and nothing else. They'd have to listen to those 5 records over and over.
And the connection is today, Sunday here in the UK, the guest was none other than Neil Gaiman.
Oh, wow.
And it's well worth listening to his choice of records and his story. And he does mention a certain cafe that we comic folk used to meet in back in the 80s. So it's been a good day here.
All right. Thank you, Steve. We also have
Benksy, the editor of the 77 comic.
Benksy, how's it going today?
Cold.
See, that's what Steve said, because you're all in the same area, aren't you? You're all in the same island. You're on the same island.
It's not kind of Canadian cold or Lakes cold, but I've just been out to my car getting it ready for tomorrow morning. Get to work. It's already frosted up. It's already, wow. I missed getting the windshield covered already. So who knows what's going to happen tomorrow morning? My toes are cold. But that doesn't matter. It's been a good day. It's been a good day.
Yeah.
Looking forward to this show immensely. And we've had a really, really busy last few weeks. The three of us, all for different reasons. We're all doing different projects, and it's really great to catch up. So, thanks for the opportunity to speak to you all today.
All right. And who's left but?
Oh, that's me now, isn't it?
That'll be you, Bully. That'll be you, Bully.
Steve Ball, otherwise known as Bully, sub-editor on the 77, also editor of the newly released annual, 77 annual, and I write a little as well, and I've got a 9 to 5. That's kind of how it works in comics, right?
Yes, that's what I hear.
And we're doing the weather forecast, so it's snowing here at the moment, and I'm in Hertfordshire, just north of Steve MacManus, who's sitting in London.
Yeah, I'm in South Florida. We're like in the higher 70s right now. It's going to get down to the 50s maybe tonight or tomorrow night. But
I'm 30 minutes from ski resorts and we don't have any snow.
All right, enough about the weather.
Okay.
Okay, Benksy, why did you start the 77 publication? Publishing,
I'd been on a long hiatus out of comics. It's something I did as a kid. In my teens, I was involved in a skateboarding fanzine called Skate Muties from the Fifth Dimension, which had some notoriety in the UK.
Okay.
It came out about the same time as Viz did. We were signed up to the same publishing agency, John Brown, I think it is. And it did great. But the ethos of the thing, and I was only a contributor, was pretty much hardcore punk with skateboarding.
Okay.
And I had a character in it and had some sort of investment. And then the usual sort of things happen. You go to college, you do something else. I studied animation, got into other fields, worked in various industries. Ended up teaching, and comics and that stuff just went further and further into the background. But my love of 2000 AD and that kind of British comic didn't leave me. I had my collection, tapped into it, bought it. And then I think 15 years ago, I started a Facebook group called 1977 to 2000 AD.
Love that group.
The name is fairly explanatory. It was the year that the comic was launched. And for us, 1977 culturally in our country is quite a big deal. There's quite a few things that people could lean back to and say, oh, yeah, that thing was happening. There was this jubilee that the Queen, 25 years of the Queen, which was for the, the high enders were like looking at culturally. But for us lot, younger kids with maybe older brothers and sisters, maybe it was like the punk explosion happened.
Yes,
the Pistols, the Clash, Damned, and all that stuff was happening. We were looking to the New York sort of scene as well. Television, Talking Heads, Ramones. And I was a kid. I was 10 years old. But absolutely,
I was 10. I was 10 in 77.
There's a lot of us who were 10 in 77.
Yeah.
So about 15 years later, I created a group, and Steve and various other guys joined me, and we've been seriously adminning it for, I'd say, 4 years. And in that time, we've had tremendous growth. We've worked with Facebook community management on defining what we're about, having a set of ethics and stuff. And it's a very creative group. Steve's a member of it, other editors of other comics, and particularly a lot of artists and creators from 2000 AD. So a lot of fantastically well-known people will dip in and out, have their comments. And one of the comments that bandied about once was, hey guys, should we do something about it? And of course, nothing happened. Should we do a comic? And then it was in the back of my mind. And obviously I was then, mulling it over. And then I had to go through a period which was quite hectic with the redundancy. And it gave me 3 months to really, really, really focus on this thing and really, really concentrate on it. And then Steve and myself, the other directors of the company, so Dave Healy, Joe Healy, Dave Bedford, we all pretty much just started saying, yeah, okay, what can we do about it? How can we draw influence in and get an anthology that we wanted to do? And we had a notion that we were going to send it to all of the conventions and represent it at the conventions. And then COVID happened. But we'd kickstarted and had a tremendous Kickstarter in the UK. And we've built on that success really in the whole pandemic lockdown, where basically we're up to issue 6 now.
Yes.
And that's how we started. And I would say now we're starting to gain traction. Now it's about a point where we're looking forward very much now. So that's a brief history of that.
What is everyone's fascination with anthology books? What's the fascination?
I think Steve mentioned it. Yeah, Steve, do you want to say you got a 9 to 5, right?
Yeah. No, I was just going to say, I think, so I was 4 in 1977. I've got to bring that in right there.
You're a youngster.
Yeah, exactly, right? But we all grew up in that. So Steve MacManus on the call right now, I consider his time in British comics as a golden time for British comics. And anthologies is how we grew up. Now, it's different in the States.
We basically had 32-page books that were one character running in their monthly. I know you guys had weekly magazines, and I know Steve started on Valiant, moved to Battle Picture Weekly, and then 2000 AD, which, 2000 AD, I read most of the beginning. I've read up to 150 progs, and then I currently get it. And anthologies to me are really cool because you do get more story for your buck, however littler. But if you think about it weekly, it kind of adds up.
I mean, you said 32 pages, but come on, you get 9 pages of adverts in an American comic.
Yeah,
22
totally
pages
do.
of content.
You totally do. It's like 22 pages. You're right. Yeah. And if you think about, so weekly, if you have a 5 or 5-page book, that's 20 a month, and you've caught up to us. Yeah.
So
I just love the variation. I love the opportunity to have different genres in the same book. Yeah, absolutely. And you missed the title that Steve is also very, very well known for.
If you go back to what we were saying, as we were growing up, so anthologies were the way we grew up. Right. So now what you've got now is the way the 77 started, for instance, and Blazer, which we're going to discuss, is that we started out with a big view on nostalgia, because that's how comic groups grew. And then, the most nostalgic thing that we have is the anthology comic. So everybody's very familiar with it. That's why I think America is probably a challenging audience for anthologies, but it's being embraced. Yeah, it's definitely being embraced.
Okay, cool. First question, Vicky.
Well, I'm going to say that in 1977, I was 7. So I was in between. And I grew up as a military brat. So I moved every other year. And it was kind of great because I loved comics. And you could get, comics were always sold at the base BX. And so I could get a variety of different comics. And of course, sometimes you'd have people bring things from other countries. And so I liked a lot of strange and unusual things. And I was very interested. How did you guys even decide what to put into the first issue? You have all these different creative people you're clearly working with. How did you decide, well, okay, which one of these people and which one of these stories were we going to start with?
I mean, I think in the earliest day, when we were setting up number 1, like I said, it was going to be a convention comic. Right. We had some homage there, and we were looking at sort of retro style. So we were asking people if they had anything, would they be interested in getting involved? So we had quite a wide net really cast over our group and over our socials. But as Steve sort of alluded to, Buddy's alluded to, we developed very quickly because we sold number 1 really well, and the feedback was good. Right. And then we realized that we had to do number 2. Therefore, we needed to have continuity strips. So pretty soon we whittled down from, I think we had 15 strips in, Steve, in the first issue. I mean, these are oversized comics, guys. They're 68, 72 pages. They're not, and it's, they're not 32 pages. And some we kept and developed. New ones came along. But we do have a submissions policy now and developed. One of our directors is not with us tonight, Dave Healy. He does submissions, but all of us involved will be looking at those. Now with Blazer, it was a completely different story, and I think that's worthy of a different question.
Yeah. Well, let's bring up Blazer right now. Steve, you've got a fictional background to what Blazer is. Can you go through that for everyone? Because this is supposed to be a comic found from 1974. Is that what that is?
Yes, I think basically it's all the stories I couldn't tell in my real life memoir.
Right.
But things I witnessed for real. which I had to kind of fictionalize. So the Sheerglam conspiracy is a bunch of events that I saw but couldn't tell because I would have been sued, I guess. So it's all had to be, the characters have had to be fictionalized.
Yeah.
Yeah. Does that answer your question?
Well, I mean, maybe Benksy could answer this, because it said the books they were found in what's
okay, let me. I'll tell you the actual story.
Benksy, give us the actual story. I want the story. I can't describe it. Go ahead.
The press release is something different. Okay. So I was very fortunate to have, as a wedding gift, only 4 years ago, I think 3 or 4 years ago, a honeymoon paid for my wife and I in Jamaica. Okay. So we're flying over on the plane, and Steve had recently sent me a copy of Sheerglam, and I was reading it and laughing out loud on the plane. And the story is hilarious. And maybe one day, Steve, we'll do this. We'll do the adapted comic version of Sheerglam. I think that's a story. We're doing a deal right now.
You've actually talked me into getting Sheerglam on Kindle.
You heard it here first. You heard it here first.
I heard it here first. Yeah.
So when you get to the last quarter of the book, what Steve has done is actually included in script format the strips to be found in the comic. Now, I think, am I right, Steve, that the book was called the comic was the title was Blaze? Is that right, Steve? And we then looked around and went, hey, DC kind of own that, or various other people. We can't use that. So when we were looking around for a name for it, it just changed to Blazer. But in effect, I approached Steve and said, look, these strips, they're worthy of a comic. What do you fancy? Do you fancy doing it? And then over a game of pool, which I was absolutely thrashed soundly at a comic convention, I think Steve basically nailed the deal. I lost, and I think subsequently I had to publish a comic for him. So that's almost how the whole thing happened. I'd rather print him a comic, publish him a comic, than actually have to pay for the next round of drinks. So
can I add to that? I think what Ben said was, this is fine. We've got a comic from 1974, but how do we explain the sudden appearance of this comic? So we had to make up the fact that it had got lost 40 years ago and was found in a warehouse in Singapore.
Okay, this is what I was talking about. Go ahead.
Yeah. It was found by a member of the 77 who had been attending a comic convention, and slightly the worse for wear stumbled into this warehouse to sleep it off and woke up to find herself surrounded by what she first thought was newspapers, but it turned out to be pristine copies of the 77.
Mate, they're not that pristine. They're a bit foxed, aren't they? Let's be honest with you. There's a little fox in them. And we have to be honest. If people thinking that, it's a little bit foxed, Steve, you do agree?
I agree. It was slightly mildewed because of 40 years in a warehouse in a tropical climate. Yes.
Yeah. So we did a job where basically we try to match the original newsprint paper stock. However, in this country now, even newspapers aren't printed on the original newspaper stock. And obviously, and I guess the same is in the case maybe in the United States history of comics, but in this country it was the big News Corps who ran the nighttime, obviously for the next day's papers. And then were printing comics perhaps in redundant time, or it started that way. So they were using the same stock, and British comics are well known. We call it, I can say this, bog paper.
Yeah, you can totally say that. No one in America knows what a bog is. Yeah. You're fine.
Okay.
No. You can
toilet tissue.
Toilet tissue works.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's notorious. You look at comics from those days. The ink comes off in your fingers. Here we go. He's got a copy holding it up.
Yay.
We got our art editor, Andrew Richmond, to actually fox it and make it look really a bit decrepit. So, there we go.
We're on radio. For those that are listening, and then imagine, if you can, an old-fashioned, like 2000 AD type thing, blazer across it, and just imagine it's everything you wanted from something from the 70s. That's what we're looking at right here.
Yeah. So it's kind of 4-color print. There's only a few pages in color. Very limited color available. It's got the features page with the editor's letters and stuff. And Steve, this is all your design. So come on, you can tell us a little bit potentially about the editor involved and how the kind of fun and games that you guys used to have in various comics, and you just put it into them.
Yeah, it was great fun writing the features to accompany the strips, which were being drawn. So in British comics, you have the front cover, you have an introductory page, then you have a letters page, and maybe one other feature page. It depends on the adverts, you know. But the letters page was, I loved making up those letters to resonate 40 years back. And then, of course, every letter had a kind of super answer from the host of the letters page, who was probably a fictional character from the comic. And and I think the feedback we've had on Blazer is people love those features.
That's my favorite part. That was my favorite part, was the editorial page and the features. I mean, those were great.
Yeah. And the fact that you could win a £3 postal order.
Yeah, they came with the first issue. The first issue when we kickstarted, they were going, "Oh, you've got to have add-ons and rewards." So we stuck a sticker in it. A sticker. You got a sticker. So we had 3,000 stickers printed, and sales have been good. The interest was so good, and obviously Steve was, chomping at the bit to get on and see a Blazer too. But we've had a very busy schedule this year, and we love Blazer. We do. But our main gig is the 77. But the time swung round. We're kickstarting at the moment. I think the Kickstarter ends, I think it's the 21st of September. We hit target in a couple of days.
December.
December.
Yeah. If it was September, we have a full year.
But if you're listening in September, timey-wimey stuff, hey? So, I mean, basically, we're kickstarting, and that's how we fund our projects. We'll talk at length in another episode about the annual and how the targets moved.
We'll talk about that,
Yeah, but we overshot our target with Blazer, and the response was Blazer 1, and the response was huge.
Right.
And people want to know what Steve's up to and his ideas now. As I said, he resonates so strongly with a whole generation of British readers and potentially further afield as well. So Blazer 2 is doing its thing and will be out, I believe, in February 22.
Okay, so where can they go to do this Kickstarter? When they go to Kickstarter.com, what should they put in to get to the campaign?
If you just put Blazer number 2, NO2, but on our Facebook group, and maybe that's easy to find as well. So it's Facebook. It's just called Blazer Comic. So we're really huge on Insta and social medias, like I said. And our group, the 77, we all have channels into this thing. But Blazer number 2 will get you straight to the Kickstarter. Okay. We've really tried to keep postage down. And the comic itself is 32 pages. I think we can get international to the States. I think it's for £5, which is it's $7. But
really that's not a lot. But then you have to ship it. So
that's the shipping. Yeah, sorry, the shipping. Yeah, that's the shipping cost. But it's not a huge expense. But we do digital, and that's the huge thing. So
I buy it digitally, and I gotta tell you something. The Blazer 1, you had it. The digital was 2 pages by 2 pages by 2 pages, so it's very hard to zoom in on your device to read each individual page. I noticed. Okay,
so we take that on board. We do have 2 options with our digitals. So our distributor runs a new kind of reading service, and you'll get the split page with that. And it's nice because the page turns. But what we do is we back that up with a personalized email to every single backer. So you'll get a raw PDF, basically. Yes. Don't go being naughty, people, okay? Because Benksy will find you.
Yes, he will.
But basically, we trust people. We don't mind sharing. I mean, as I say, I come from a punk ethos, you know? Sharing is caring, but basically direct people back and pay some respects and credit people. That's what it's about, because the guys need paying, right? But in effect, our sales on digital just keep on ticking along, and I can understand why people, for folk across the States or in Europe, they're keen on the digitals, and I get that entirely. So our PDF is a single page, okay?
Gotcha.
And you just scroll. So that's it.
Then I'm going to have to get that one because I've got the 2-page one. So we're going to take a break here on Mark Who 42's Universe. When we come back, we'll continue our talk on Blazer issue 2 and the 77 with Steve MacManus, Benksy, and Bully, Steve Bull. We'll be right back after this.
We'll be back with more of Mark Who 42's universe here on Odyssey Radio.
Tooncast is dedicated to the cartoons we grew up with. 100 episodes and more make up one of the GCRN's most popular podcasts. Join hosts TFG and Mike, Optimus Solo, Terror the Rising Star, and tons of guest hosts. We also have voice actor and writer interviews. Tune in to Tooncast as we look back on the cartoons that defined us as geeks. You can find Tooncast on iTunes and the web at www.geekcastradio.com. Tune in.
You are listening to Mark Who 42's Universe on Odyssey Radio.
Welcome back to more of Mark Who 42's Universe here on Odyssey Radio, Geekcast Radio Network, MarkWho42.com, and all around the interweb thingy. I'm your host, Mark Baumgarten. With me today are Vicky Jakubowski, my co-host, and special guests, Benksy, the editor of the 77 comic, Bully, the editor of the 77 annual, and someone who I needs no introduction, at least to UK fans, maybe your UK American listener or something, Steve MacManus, the writer of Blazer, and he used to be Tharg. Isn't that right, Steve?
That's right, Mark. I was Tharg for 8.5 years. I had to wear a mask and a kind of ski costume, boots.
I've seen the pictures.
Yeah, and that mask is still going strong today, but it's a bit stinky, I'm told.
Oh, okay. Now, Benksy, I want to bring this up. Now, the 77 is very popular in the UK. I don't doubt that's where it originates. That's where the anthology comics come from. But I know that you're trying to get readership in the US. Isn't that right?
That would be lovely, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would. I guess because I get it digitally, but I'm sure, getting into, and you have it at the comic stores and Forbidden Planet and stuff in the UK. How do you try to get it over to America? Okay,
so a year ago, I was literally phoning American shops. I've had some calls taken, so I want to be a big call out to James Syme over at Isotope Comics in Berkeley. Okay, thanks, mate. And we got several others which do loyally stock us. They have those discerning readers who just love that kind of quaint British thing. And
yes.
That's good. That's good on an individual basis. But because no one's been able to attend sales conventions and Comic Cons, our first one was the UK's largest, called Thought Bubble, which is comic centered. We've only just started, pressing flesh, really. So, we've had conversations with Diamond UK and such like. But this is a call out, really, to anyone who's listening, knows somebody, is that person. Get in touch with us at the77comic@gmail.com. We're serious about doing business, and we've got stock, and we're not noobs now. We've got 6 really good editions behind us, and we're looking to reformat the work. We're looking to make it potentially more US friendly. It can go to 22-page format. We're open to suggestions, but we want to work with people. We want to have a serious dialogue and conversation, and come and find out all about us. We're a nice bunch of guys and girls, and we take it seriously. And we really think that we've got something that will do very well for anybody, really.
Yeah. Online though, where can they actually get back issues?
Okay, the77comic.net.
Okay.
That's our online store, and our great friends at getmycomics.com. That's all one word, getmycomics.com. And I'm sure you'll be leaving the links.
Yes, I will. I will be having the links.
Those guys have been absolutely splendid for us. They've been working hard with us, and they take care of our distribution, and both digitally and in the print as well.
Okay. I'm assuming, because Forbidden Planet in England gets your issues, I'm assuming the one in New York also sells them?
I can't say yes to that. I don't. If the store manager wants to call me.
Yeah, people, definitely, it's a shout out. Okay, Vicky, why don't you take the next question?
Well, I wanted to ask Bully. I really enjoy the story of V, not just because it's called V. But I don't know. To me, it brings me back to some movies and comics I read in the 70s and the 80s, and I could definitely see some of the influence. And I love the fact that it's in black and white. But how in the world did you come up with that idea to do a comic in black and white?
Well, here we go. So when you say about the influences, that's where it comes from, really.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of inspiration taken from. So I think what we had a lot of people tapped into mythology from lots of different areas of the world back in the 70s, 80s, and pulled those characters and created fictional stories around them. And at the time, most of that was in black and white. So obviously we started off with a sort of nostalgic trip, and that series started off as a one-off kind of a bit of a twist in the tale story. But I tapped into, I'm a big fan of mythology, and I tapped into some characters from Syrian mythology, so going back to Mesopotamia, and decided I will pick them up and take them into the future and create a new world and a new game. And that's where V came from. I was lucky enough to work with some amazing artists as well. That's how that one started.
Well, it made me think about, as I would move around the U.S., there was a lot of homegrown comics that you could get on base and in the cities connected to the army bases. And you would see a lot of black and white, especially in the 70s, and the pen ink. And it made me think about, my childhood, because it was just, I remember picking these up and they were, home printed and everything. And it just really tapped into that part of me that I hadn't thought about in a few decades.
Do you know what? I think that's really important, because I was massively inspired by my childhood there. It's been received really well. And there's been a bit of a crux, because modern comic readers want to read everything in color. Yeah. And yet we've got this group of people who, I think there's more attention in general that goes into the artwork when you print it in black and white.
Yes.
And I personally am a bit of a purist on that side. And the artwork in black and white, I could spend ages just staring at it. And I think what happens, especially with computer coloring techniques, etc., is your line work starts to get reduced because everything's done with the color at a later stage. So to really sort of capture the nostalgic side, I think black and white was the purest type. Unfortunately, we've had this battle. As we move further forward, we need to produce a color comic. So as we get further into the series of the 77, what you'll see is a full color comic. But the plan is, and how I'm saving these things down and working with the artist, is at a point we're going to, once we complete book one, we're going to produce book one. And the idea is to produce it so that you can read it in color from one way, or flip the book and read it in the black and white traditional.
Oh, wow. I love that. I love that.
Yes.
So how cool would that be, right?
That would be awesome.
And that's going to be 100 pages. That's going to be 100 pages.
That works for me.
I got no problem. I also love silent movies, and I have a very extensive movie collection. It's my mother's fault. I'm absolutely love movies as much as I love comics and every genre. And I have 3 copies of Metropolis. So.
Exactly. So I think we can all appreciate, there is an artistic level to looking at a black and white movie or a movie without sound. Picking up vinyl over CD or digital. There's there's always an audience, and I think they're your connoisseurs, right? They're the people who really want to appreciate it. So,
and if you go back into the history of British weeklies, they were all black and white, except maybe the center pages were.
Center pages.
So you had all the beautiful artwork that was in there, and very stylistic compared to what some of the American comics are.
Can I cut in at this point? So really, what's happened is, as Bully's alluded to, we've dropped really that whole focus just on the retro with the 77.
Right.
We're now moving forward, and it's natural because we've been doing it for 2 years, right?
Right.
But Blazer is our line in the sand.
Because
that's frozen in time.
Because it's 1974, yeah.
And as you just said, Mark, the center pages on Blazer are the only color pages in the book.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So you've got, if only I didn't blur my screen, right? You see that?
I can, if that's number one, I got a copy. So
if anybody watching listening in black and white, Bully's holding up a color comic.
Right, if they're listening in black and white. Very good.
Well, I have to say, my 27-year-old son is now starting to really He's loving vinyl. He's into the line drawing. He actually draws himself, and he loves the line drawings and the black and white. It just, I see him actually starting to gravitate to some of the things that we
it's
grew
cool,
up with.
isn't it? My friend's kids have got Walkmans again, whether it's inspired by Marvel and Star-Lord. We're seeing that, kids are picking up retro. It is fashion, and they're appreciating it. So, why can't a comic?
Yeah, and the other really huge thing that we've looked at, which is part of our present sort of lineup, is, and I know you guys, I mentioned earlier about the 100 pages. You get the 100-page annuals, from do you still get them? Do you still have them? Still?
There are, they do have them. Some years they don't, but they do have them. But then you think about all the pages that are ads.
But Bully and myself, I mean, we'd say now, our guest is Steve MacManus. He produced for us the absolute grail issues of 2 or 3, 4, possibly the highest quality of the British Annual, which is a Christmas Day opening gift. Yeah. That's the tradition. You open it up, your gran, your dad, your auntie, they bought it for you. You're off now for a couple of hours. You're not going to be found.
Right.
You're hiding somewhere. You're reading this thing. You're cutting bits out. You're playing games, which were contained within them. And this is our homage. We've done the 77 annual, and Bully is the editor of that. And it's really down to Steve MacManus and the guys he worked with to produce those ones for, I think, 83, 84, 81, 82, 83, 84 for 2000. And the first couple of Judge Dredd ones are just, they're recognized amongst fans as being pinnacle, really. So
those annuals we don't have in America. We don't have the hardbound, maybe there's a 100-page comic book, but we don't get the hardbounds. And I know about the hardbounds because I used to get Doctor Who annuals. Speaking of Mark Who 42, and the Doctor Who annuals, they have the stories, they had the comics, they had, and I know you had this in annual 1, the games and the feature stories. So I mean that, and I got to hand it to you, Bully. You really made the annual feel like an annual. He's giving me a thumbs up, by the way. Yes,
I did. Yeah. I was going to jump in as well. Yeah, thank you very much, Mark. I think so. Really, to sort of bring it to life to the people listening here. So what we've got an oversized comic. It's got a hardcover. That's the cover right there. There's 142 pages in here, and what we grew up with was not only the comic stories inside. So this is an anthology again, about 20 stories inside here, all one and done stories. Some featuring ongoing characters, some straight out of the blue, with twists in their towel, etc., or maybe even a Christmassy theme because we're going to be opening this at Christmas. And then in between, like you say, when we grew up, I'm going to show the first page, which is a very British thing here. So you had this annual belongs to, and you'd write your name in there,
right?
And then you'd have the price tag at the bottom corner that you'd have to snip off before you gave it to somebody as a present.
Yeah, you ruined the value of the comic the book before you even.
Yeah, we missed a trick in the Kickstarter. We should have had a higher price for unclipped ones, and the clipped ones would have been discounted.
And then what you'd have sandwiched in between all the stories. So we've got there's a story called Division 77, a future war story, and you'd basically
and you have actually Division 77. Actually, it's a prequel, so you don't interrupt the flow of the current story in the 77.
Exactly right. Yeah. And then if we get to the end of that, we've got a cut out and keep character. So you can actually clip the page out of your comic, make your character, and he can stand on your shelf while you're reading your comic.
Can't do that with the digital version. Can't do that.
Can't do that. Yeah, it's a little bit tricky, isn't it? The print and cut out and keep. Yeah,
you can print it. You can print it.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Okay. You got me.
You got our permission.
One of my favorite stories in the annual was The Waker. Is there any chance that's going to come back?
Yeah, so that was a real find, wasn't it, Steve? Bully.
Yeah, go on, Ben. I think you can take this one because you got most of the credit on this one. Our friends in Africa came through, didn't they?
Yeah, we had this lovely gentleman, Mahmoud Obagwele, contact us through submissions, and he sent a script, and we were like, we didn't know how to handle this script at all, and he didn't have an artist or anything, and it's been a slow burner in getting through development. He's in development hell. And eventually Mahmoud got back in touch saying, hey guys, I've got an artist, but in Nigeria, you have to pay first. And I'm like, okay. It's not really our policy. We're not back end, but basically as soon as the Kickstarter's been funded and we take the costs and all that, everything else goes to the creators. The directors don't draw anything directly from the Kickstarter at all. But anyway, Mahmoud was happy. I said, look, we'll go ahead. We had a directors meeting. We went, yep, pay the man. And Toyin has produced a guy called Morbi, or Toyin, a colleague he works with. This is one of the foremost artists in West Africa, and absolutely fantastic. And yeah, it stands out, doesn't it? It's kind of dark in some ways. I get that. You know, like I say, the book is not all ages. There's probably parental advisory for 12, 13 plus, maybe. But there's no how can I put this? There's no sex in the thing and other sort of problematic areas. But no, the artwork.
I would have bought it even if there was a warning on it.
Right now. Sorry, Vicky.
What was that, Vicky?
I said my brother and I would have bought it anyway if there was a warning on it. I mean, we just didn't show them off. You know.
Yeah, but that was the same with Action Comic, which I've mentioned before, which Steve MacManus was involved in the 70s. Right. It was called The 7 Penny Nightmare. And it had sharks eating people in half. It had rollerball with people being splattered, and Dredger was shooting people in the mouth and all sorts, you know. And this is 7-year-old kids buying this stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, but going back to the Waker,
wasn't there a big hoo-ha to Action after you left, Steve? That was a big problem with that. They went too far.
I got out just in time, I think. They drove that comic off the rails straight over a cliff because they didn't understand the editors where there was a line in terms of acceptability. And for example, I used to introduce the comic as Action Man, and I would write my own introduction. But when I left, they started writing it under my name and under my photograph.
Oh.
And they had things like, oh, yeah, guys, I went out and got drunk last night. Ha, ha, ha. You know, this is not cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've learned a lot from that.
Yeah, I bet you have.
Well, it's been in folklore. It's been in folklore, you know. All the issue 37 of Action, if you can find a copy, it was pulped, is worth, okay, in American values, nothing at all. It's worth £5,000 sterling. And for a mid-season or a mid-print comic is a lot. I mean, considering 2000 AD #1, even mint with the free gift, you're not even going to pay £500 for it.
No,
you know, it's a completely different level of
wouldn't have been able to get it if it was 500.
But you know, I say, going back to the Waker, this just shows our spread now. You know, we've got guys from Central America, North America, South America, Africa, all through Europe. Our editor is from New Zealand. You know, this is during COVID. We're all talking like we do now on Zoom, and I've had so many discussions with people, and they're all saying the same thing. COVID's been awful, no doubt about it. Absolutely. Economically, for families who've had loved ones they've lost, you know, no one's making light of this at all. But in terms of actually being able to, the need to communicate in a slightly different way and a nuanced way, I think has opened up the world for some people. And we're people who've really, really grabbed that opportunity and tried really hard.
Okay. We're running to about 9 minutes left here on Odyssey Radio. We'll go further on the podcast version, but I wanted to ask, because this is about Blazer issue 2, Steve, what can we look forward to in this issue that we're kickstarting now?
Well, thanks for asking. Yeah, in a sense, the stories you read in issue 1 are being wrapped up, so it's like a closing issue. And the reason for this is, if there were to be an issue 3, issue 2 is talking about a merger where Blazer is going to be merged with a horror comic called Frightful.
Oh wow!
So in proper comics, when that merger was coming into view, you had to wrap up all the stories in your comic to make way for the new scripts coming in. So Blazer issue 2 has some pretty much wrap-up stories. And there's one drawn by Dan Cornwell, who does Rock of the Gods with John Wagner. Mm-hmm. And the story he's drawn with me is called Godwin's Law. And
yes.
I kid you not, it brings a tear to my eye, the ending. And I wrote the thing, you know. And the way, because way Dan drew it, it's so heartfelt. It's a bit more adult than what you would have got in 74. I put my hand up to that. But hey, I always say that after Action Comic, Blazer would have been my next step forward, and that's why Blazer has a female a woman on the editorial, and it's a bit more adult, as 2000 AD did. So Blazer 2 is a wrap up, and it's well worth getting.
What about Dominica's Ring? If it's a wrap up, from what I understand, issue 2 doesn't have a continuation of that.
No, that's a shame. I'm hoping that because the artist Peter Weston, he fell asleep on his hand, and he couldn't draw. He damaged the nerve. In his drawing hand, and for weeks and weeks and weeks he couldn't draw. So we just felt that we had to bring in something else to fill that gap.
Yeah, and that was a real life editorial sort of decision that we had to work through.
Yeah.
And Bully was involved as well, because Pete Weston was also commissioned for a strip called the Steve Bully. What's the strip in the annual called?
Phil from the Furry, which we got finished. It's an amazing looking strip as well, because Pete's art is fantastic. So you couldn't do Dominica's Ring without it, I don't think, could you?
No, he's not just a BAFTA winning animator. I mean, he's worked with some huge films. He had an honorary BAFTA given to him. So that's the British Academy.
Yeah.
But what happened, Mark, was Billy stole my artist.
Yeah, that's true. I have to deal with this in-house squabbling. Do you see what I have to deal with?
Hey, we get it too here at Mark Who 42. We get tons of in-house squabbling. We know it.
Steve, you just wanted to practice with me, so it could be right for you.
But you know what I just realized, though? If Blazer is merging into a horror comic, then Dominica's Ring could go into there.
Ooh.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Because it is horror. Yeah. It is kind of horror.
However, there might be one last title left. Obviously the annual for the 77 has been a tremendous hit, but it's a heck of an undertaking to produce that. Yes. That's why that's Bully's responsibility, right?
It's all Bully's fault.
But to do 2 in a year, we've got to find also the scheduling for our fundraising, and we might. I mean, we might skip a year, we might do Blazer, but this is all, Don't tell anybody, guys. We're still working on it. But we might.
Yeah, we won't tell anybody. We won't tell anybody. If they're listening, it's their fault. We're not.
But
telling
another
anybody.
British tradition that came out in July in the summer was the summer special, which was a double issue.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
But you paid about 4 times the amount for it. It was such a clever marketing trick, But as far as I know, and I've learned all this from speaking with Steve MacManus, if he had to go on holiday, he had to write this thing first. He had to get the whole thing done, and with the annual, you had to work through it through the year. So, hey, we in our scheduling in the 12 months, we will have produced 11 comics. So that's barely one a month, right? With different titles, different things we do. I don't know how these people, I mean, obviously they work in bigger teams, but how could they do a weekly and a summer special and a winter
and an annual? Yeah.
Oh my days. And get holiday.
And if you think about it, there was a 2000 AD annual and a Judge Dredd annual.
Yeah.
So there were 2.
Oh God, don't. On the subject of summer special, because we're an island, in Britain at least, when it's summer, we go to the seaside because it's never more than 30 minutes away. And of course, when I was growing up, in my summer specials, all the characters went to the seaside, and that's where their stories were set. And it was brilliant because the annual, as Billy said, was more kind of Christmas oriented. And in the summer special was hijinks and getting crabs biting your toes and stuff, Very British, very British.
Yeah, it was all kind of kiss me quick as well. That old British thing from kind of post-war. And it just rolled on and on and on. And, in this country as well, just talking about war stories, they didn't finish till about 1990. We were still fighting the Second World War in 1990. battle action and all that. Just carry on.
Yeah. All right. Before we go from Odyssey Radio, can you talk about Benksy, about the Kickstarter campaign, where they can go and where they can find back issues?
Okay, back issues from the 77comic.net or getmycomics.com. The Kickstarter, look at Blazer number 2 at no.1. Number 2 to no.2. But look for Blazer. It'll pop up in the comic section. Yeah. It's running until the 21st of December. And it's fully funded. So, you're going to get product. We have this thing with us. You don't wait 6 months, a year, 2 years. You get it within a month.
Wait a minute. So it just started like the Friday passed and you're already fully funded?
We don't stop. We keep rolling.
No, I know that. I know that. But I mean, you hit the mark.
The funding's hit, and we're building on it. Yeah.
Okay, that's amazing. Okay, well, that's it for this section. The end of Mark Who 42's universe here on Odyssey Radio. We will be. Are you guys going to stick around?
Of course.
All right. We're going to do our bonus section here on the Mark Who 42's Universe podcast. So I just want to say to everyone, thank you very much for being here, for joining us. And wow, we have 2 minutes to kill. So what else can we talk about in 2 minutes?
What can we not talk about?
What can we not talk about?
There's a lot of great podcast in the UK. I've got to say a couple of things here, name checks.
Okay.
Brew Gooders. Comics and beer. Now that's a great combination. They talk about beer and comics. So check that out. All right.
Okay. All right. Sounds good to me. Any podcast you would recommend, Bully? We're totally throwing our audience away. They're listening to us and they're going to go elsewhere and never come back.
We're on Icecast next.
Where are you next?
Shane Chebsey's Icecast. So myself, Steve, and Dan Cornwall will be appearing next week. Yeah, we've done one of those, haven't we, Bully?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you again. Glad you're going to stick around. This is Mark Who 40's Universe here on Odyssey Radio. Until next time, so long. Don't forget, go to Kickstarter, look up Blazer. You will find the Kickstarter thing. They've already funded, but they're going to keep making money for the artists and writers. Is that what you said?
Creators, yeah.
Absolutely.
For the creators. And then the issue will come out pretty damn soon. And if you definitely go get your back issues, getmycomics.com. And what is the
77comic.net.
Okay. On behalf of myself, Bully, Benksy, Steve MacManus, and Vicky, we'll talk to you right after the break. Stay tuned.
We'll be back with more of Mark Who 42's Universe here on Odyssey Radio.
Because the world needs another movie podcast.
The Geekcast Radio Network presents for your listening pleasure the Cinema Geek.
Hosted by Amanda, Kevin, Matt, and Dan.
Each week we dive headfirst in the landscape of movies as we discuss movie news, play movie games,
go in-depth on reviews,
and even have a top 10 countdown or two.
Also, don't miss our director retrospective series where we review noted directors' movies film by film. Bottom line is, if you love movies and love podcasts, you need to experience the Cinema Geeks.
You can find us on iTunes, Blog Talk Radio, or geekcastradio.com.
Welcome back to the Mark Who 42's Universe podcast. Yeah, those people on Odyssey Radio have no idea what we're talking about now. We are far from them. We are on the roll. I'm your host, Mark Baumgarten. With me today are Vicky Jakubowski, my co-host, and all from the 77 publication, Benksy, Bully, and Steve MacManus. Hello, guys.
Hey.
Welcome back.
Quite fun.
So first, we have a giveaway. Everyone, we have a giveaway. Benksy?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're currently up to issue 6, but our kind of launch issue, relaunch issue in terms of when we started really getting into grips with what we were doing was issue 5. And we would love everybody to get a copy. You could mail us, but that's going to be expensive. So we're going to do a digital download free for everybody. So it requires some emailing. Okay, so you can email us at the 77comic@gmail.com, and we will send free of charge a PDF copy, the full edition of issue 5 of the 77, and that's to anybody who wants to have a copy. It's best if you email us using Gmail, because I say it's a Google Drive, but we can sort other issues out if that's a problem.
All right. All right, let's continue talking. Vicky, any question that you'd like to bring up now? Vicky?
So, I think that you guys have kind of touched on this a little bit. So I love the variety of styles you have in each. I mean, going from very edgy, very dark, and then you have something like Penny Pentagram, which is if Sabrina Spellman and Buffy the Vampire Slayer had a baby, this is what it would look like. And it's so cutesy. It reminds me of the Archie comics when I was a kid. How do you guys deal with all the juxtapositions, or do you just really kind of like the almost headbutting of styles?
Vicky, we deal with adults. We commission, and we let them get on with it. You know, I'm the editor, but I'm not there saying, no, it has to have this thing. No, you can't do that. It's do what you want, get back to us, and if you're not published next time, you know why. Okay, so
I think the variety of styles as well is the beauty of the anthology, is that what you can do is that I would doubt very, very much that everybody loves everything that they read in the comic. But also what you'll get is the same two people won't dislike the same strip. So what you're going to get is you're going to get all these weird styles, and it's going to open you up. I think we kind of end up siloed a little bit when we're reading comics. You know, I like superheroes, so I'm going to read superhero comic. I like Western, I'm going to read a Western comic. When actually what happens when you pick up an anthology is you start reading all these different styles, and you'll probably go through all the genres that you like first. And then you're going to go back in because actually, let me finish the book. So then you're going to pick up. It's like, you know, when you buy your favorite record, it's the album, and you bought it because of them 2-3 songs that have been on the radio.
Right.
And then because you bought it, you start listening, and then you get the growers, right? You get all those other things that come through, and then you fall in love with it. And that's kind of what you got. And then it's going to send you in different directions. And I really think that's the beauty of it.
Yeah, I'd hope the buddy doesn't mind if I say what my favourite strip is. Okay.
Oh.
I mean, V's fantastic. Don't get me wrong. Absolutely brilliant. It's definitely in my top 10. Okay. No. So when Bully and I were at the trade stand at Thought Bubble, the UK's the biggest that's been around this year, has opened again. You know, we can go to conventions. We were giving away stickers. We were giving away beer mats for the dads. You know, hey, you need a beer mat. You know.
Yes. Oh, we're going to talk about beer in a minute. Yeah.
Absolutely. And then you look at the pin badges and say to the little child, hey, do you want a pin badge? And we had like a selection of them. We had our logo. We had Benksy ones. We also had, he's my favorite character. And you say to the kid, this is Sergeant Shouty. He's a sergeant.
Yes.
And they love Sergeant Shouty because he's from Moonbase. And it's just nuts. And it's by a pretty well-known British cartoonist who's been working for almost 40 years, Lou Stringer. He's done Beano. He's done all of the British stories. Oink was a big city anthology that came out 30-odd years ago. He's got Combat Colin. He's got Brickman. Yeah. All these things he's created. And he's done Sergeant Shouty for us. And Sergeant gets his 2-page origin story.
Yes.
In the annual.
Playing,
It's just fun. It's just fun. So we have that, you know, and then you've got the dark, and then you've got the lightweight, and then you've got the fantasy. And I love picking up my comic and just going through it. You know, that's what
I like a variety of styles. I've often been told it's like, no, if you like science fiction, you can only like this and that. I mean, you look at my book collection, you look at my music collection. It's like I got Hildegard von Bingen all the way to Marilyn Manson. So I have a very strange taste, and I love these anthologies. We've been doing it wrong this whole time because this is perfect because it feeds all my different little animals that just... You know, sometimes I want something light and easy, and sometimes I want something really dark and really gross.
Yeah. But in the general anthology comic books that we you know, the comics that kind of made us, you know, looking back, you'd have a detective story, you'd have a sports story, you'd have a kids school-based story.
Right.
You could have fantasy, and we just grew up on that. It's just literally having like, as a kid, because we didn't have this on TV. We watched Banana Splits and all the American shows, Hanna-Barbera.
Yes.
We didn't have much of our own apart from Blue Peter. And if anybody watches PBS and you get Blue Peter, you know the problem, right?
Wait a minute. Blue Peter's on PBS?
Yes.
I hope so.
I have seen it.
I never saw the episodes with Peter Purvis on.
And it's not an obscure kind of adults only website, okay, guys? All right. It's very
Give me a minute to get that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Don't Google it.
Yeah.
I think I've seen the DVD.
Blue Peter. No.
BBC. This is the BBC. Now children can join us while they watch Blue Peter. And it's
PBS has that on the air, Vicky?
Yes, I've actually caught it a few times.
Not down here in South Florida.
I actually caught it, and I was really surprised that it was here in Reno. And I don't know if it's a normal thing they do, but to me, it's just the funniest name of a kids show.
Is it the original ones, or are they making new ones? Is the original British ones?
I don't know. I didn't watch it.
So I was really surprised, Steve MacManus, that Tharg never got invited.
Yeah, that would have been great. You could have been,
I think he was a bit too kind of edgy for Blue Peter. They're very, very safe.
Did you do much TV, sort of, not links, but I mean,
Yeah, the edgy programs. Yeah, we went on rock shows and stuff. Something called the Money Program, because they saw the money that was being made, so they wanted to focus on that.
You should have been in the Blue Peter garden with your green fingers.
But as you guys were talking, I was thinking about anthologies and how in the 70s suddenly it became desirable to have a comic that was about one subject, one genre, so war, sport, or science fiction, or fantasy.
Battle.
Exactly.
Weekly, and
But within that title, you still had to then tick the boxes. So you would have in 2000 AD, for example, you would have a sports story, a future war story, a detective story, a lawman, and a bounty. So actually, it all, despite being genre.led, it was always anthology, and there'd be stories you liked and stories you didn't.
You're actually correct.
Did you ever work on any girls' comics? Because we had this thing called girls' comics,
right?
Yeah.
And if I remember from the book
of a girls' comic.
If I remember from your book, Steve, you said you took training for the girls' comic group, and then somehow that led to 2000 AD in a way or something. Didn't it?
Yeah.
Yes,
that was right. I think the thing was about the girls' comics was they were pretty real life Dickensian, very cruel stepmothers and things, whereas the boy comics.
Have you met a teenage girl? Yes.
Yeah, exactly. I did write some stuff for girls. Photostrips were very popular. Do you know that's a story in photographs? Like the Italians would.
Yeah, we had some, I think. Yeah.
Diometti. Sorry, my mind keeps jumping to Key West, where I
Key West story. I'm right down there. Okay.
Oh man, I'm a member of about 8 million. There's so many Key West groups, and I'm a member of them all. And my heart, God, man, if I could just get back there and have some margaritas and watch the sun go down, my life would be perfect.
I think we need to do a Kickstarter for you, Steve.
It worked.
Send Thug to Key West. He needs a break.
As long as we take pictures of you down there, I'll be your handler. We'll go down there.
I've got a picture of me in 1986 on a boat in Key West. I'll send it to you. It's not rude. But
then I'd love a copy. You can send that to me. Totally.
So didn't is it Fleetway or IPC then, Steve? You did your 8.5 years with 2000 AD.
Yeah.
And didn't they send you on a kind of trip to just discover America or something? I can't quite.
Well, my problem was I couldn't drive. So America, as I found out, is quite a big place.
Yeah, pretty much.
Texas takes 2 days to drive through. I've done it a few times.
Florida takes a day and a half.
Yeah,
from the bottom to the top.
Yeah.
So I was sitting rather miserably in a bar in Chicago rail.
Oh.
And I looked up and there was this poster on the wall, which was a cartoon representation of Key West. And I realized this was a small place you could walk around.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So I got the bus down there, which is a lovely trip if you've ever done it.
I like driving with the windows
7
down.
Mile Bridge.
Yeah.
And I was in heaven because you can walk around Key West and there's loads of pretty girls. And
chickens everywhere. Tons of chickens.
That's right. And Hemingway cats.
Yeah. Oh, yes. With the number of paws that shouldn't be.
So, sorry, I didn't mean to go off in a tangent.
Did you sell any comics?
This isn't a tangent.
Did you get much business, Steve?
Yeah. If you get business done in Key West,
wasn't there that one woman that you met down there? If I remember correctly.
I know.
You could tell I just read the book like 2 weeks ago.
Yes. It's probably a bit adult for you. So
yeah. Oh, so actually, speaking of the book, here's something I need you to clarify. There's a section you wrote, I headed for its lounge bar immediately in need of a more liquid jolt. That makes sense. Stopping on the way to look at the Queen's Arms to loosen up the infield, as the Americans say. I have never heard the phrase loosen up the infield. You say that we Americans know it. No clue. Never heard that before.
Is that the same as watering the flowers?
My dear boy, it's a baseball term.
I like baseball, but I don't know what that is. I never heard that phrase before.
Well, it was told to me by my great friend. No, seriously, guys.
Okay.
Vicky.
I wanted to ask this question when I knew we were interviewing.
Fair enough. I didn't know what it meant, but it was told to me by Philip Don Levy, who is the son of the late great guy who wrote The Ginger Man. Don Levy was it? Patrick. Anyway, and Philip always sends me pictures of himself having a Guinness, and he says, I'm just loosening up the infield. And I said, what does that mean? He said, it's a baseball term. So, Mark.
Okay. I'll take it. I'll take that as my answer.
You down. Vicky,
I'll take it as an answer.
Down. Back of the class.
Oh, my God.
You haven't got any obscure quotes for me and Bully, have you?
Yeah.
Don't make me explain my life.
No. Okay. Perfect segue. So in the 77 annual, there were stories about each of the creative teams, the creative people in it, done in the comic strip. And the one that Bully wrote about you, Benksy, it was the most amazing ripoff of Die Hard, but it worked so freaking good. Where did it come from besides Die Hard?
You have
to ask Bully.
I'm asking both of you. But yes, Bully. He wrote it.
Right,
so Bully.
Yeah. What I wanted to do, the start of most of these, or a lot of these annuals that we grew up with, were this fun little strip, quite often led by the fictional editor, which was quite a prominent thing in the 70s and 80s.
Yeah, I mean, the Tharg comic strips, I remember those, yeah.
There you go. And Benksy is the character that is our fictional editor, and also our real editor. So he's just slightly different look, but not much. And what I wanted to do is I wanted to capture, because it was a Christmas annual, I wanted to capture something that was, so I wanted to put a little twist on something we would consider Christmas, but not Christmas. Okay. So Die Hard is a Christmas movie, or is it a Christmas movie?
Right, I think it is. I consider it a Christmas movie. I consider
it every Christmas Eve.
There you go. So that lent itself really well. And then the story of Die Hard, rewritten in my style, and bring a little cartoony and fun element to the annual, was to bring our characters, create our characters, because they've not been seen before like that.
No.
Give some awareness to the team that's actually behind the comic.
Right.
But also to give us some fictional characters that we can play with in the future or in future annuals.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of what happened. Now,
okay, so what's Benksy's next movie? What are you going to write next year?
There's about 3 in my mind.
Okay,
but I haven't shortlisted. Well, the shortlist. So possibly Gremlins could come into the equation.
Oh, okay.
In the community, although it's not strictly Christmassy, Aliens could be a fun thing.
That could be
fun thing.
That could be fun.
There we go. And then there was Home Alone as well, which came out left.
Home Alone. It has already been not only done.
Isn't that a Christmas movie too? Home Alone.
It is a Christmas movie. Yeah. But after number 2, it went downhill. Disney Plus just released a new series. God help us all. Sure. And it's been parodied so often now that it's kind of like, not fun anymore.
Yeah. Okay. Let's keep that one. That one's getting out right now. Okay. And we're left with the other 2. So, what do you guys think? Would you like to see a Gremlins, or would you like to see an Aliens?
I think Aliens would work, but Gremlins possible. But I like Aliens. Alien or Aliens? Which one?
I think Aliens would be better for the team.
Yeah. Okay. I can see it.
That could be fun.
In fact, you don't have to do one comic for each person. You could put them all in the one strip.
Exactly. So that's what you've got there with the Die Hard. You'll see that, or Try Hard, sorry, because it's not Die Hard at all.
Yeah, not Die Hard. You can't do that. That's copywritten. You get in trouble.
Yeah, we wouldn't be able to do that. So yeah, legally that would be bad. So Try Hard. Yeah. So you'll see all of our characters come to life within that story there. And you should see nice little Easter eggs, throwbacks to anything from James Bond to our man, the Mighty One, on side with us at the moment. So hopefully it's a fun little strip just to open the comic and people enjoy it. So.
Back to the Mighty One. Question, not really a question. So there was Mach 1, which was the comic that was there that was a rip off of the $6 Million Man. Fine with that. I thought it was better than the $6 Million Man. But you created a character called Mach 0, which was they had been experimenting on people before Mach 1, and Mach 0 was the previous, right?
Right.
The one that didn't work. Okay, here's my question. The ones before Mach 0, did you write yourself into a corner? Should there be like a Mach -1 and a Mach -2? I'm confused why you picked Mach 0, because it totally messes you up on all the previous experiments.
I'm afraid that's classified information, Mark.
You also can I just pop this one in here as well? TMO, the Mighty One. My favorite of the whole series is Mark Aardvark, which was created by a fantastic artist, Kevin O'Neill.
Yes. Oh, he's good.
I believe he scripted them, but Steve, you may be able to tell me otherwise. But it was just before your tenure, wasn't it? So it was I think in '78, and he did a whole funny strip called Bonjo from Beyond the Stars, which is my all-time favorite 2000 AD.
Yeah.
If people go on about that, I'm a happy man, because it means that they were a kid when I was a kid. And Bonjo he smushes. He does Godzilla. Godzilla doesn't stand a chance. He burps and he breaks wind. Yeah. And he sits on cities. And he defeats all these other Mac characters. And the funniest one zooms around the panels because it's been burst like a balloon. And Mark Aardvark is the first one. So is there a Mark Baumgarten? Is that
that's me? I'm Mark Baumgarten. That's me. That's me. Thank you. What else do I have? Okay. What about Pat Mills, the great Pat Mills? What is this story with Slane and its origins? His wife and stuff, and how that didn't work out. I know it's a tangent. I know I'm throwing a fastball here, but Steve, any words of wisdom on this?
I think Pat's got a book coming out called Slane: The Secret History.
Yeah, I saw that listed on Amazon. Yeah. So if you told me it would break this.
No. I haven't read it myself. I think he's. I'm told he's not very complimentary about me, which is a shame.
Oh wow!
Because,
Really?
Yeah, it's a shame. But then he obviously hasn't read The Mighty One, where I say nice things.
You said nice things about him. Totally. You'd think from how you wrote that you guys were pals, but okay, that's horrible. That's terrible.
Sadly, there are two sides to every story, and it's always amazing when you find out that the other side is woo.
Yeah. I will leave it at that. I mean, it's not.
No, it's not a good story. Oh, it's terrible.
I read this to just diverge a little bit.
Okay.
I read this fascinating meme the other day, and what it was is basically saying you have your own version of you, but there are at least 1,000 other versions, and it's every single one, the person that you know, how they see you, and every one of those people has a different version of you, how they react to you, what they think about you. So I'm a bit zen there, really, but I think the fact is that my feelings about how people work together and stuff. At the end of the day, me telling you how I work with people doesn't really matter, because it's what they think. That's the important thing. And I think I've never really interacted with Pat Mills, apart from to shake his hand and say thanks, mate, at the 40th convention, the celebration of 2000 AD. But he doesn't play pool, as far as I know. And he's never offered to do a comic with us. So that's what I'm going to say.
Yeah. The more you know. That's a PSA in America.
I actually think it's a really good segue into sort of the comic creating community at large.
Yeah.
So we've noticed it. Obviously, Steve would have gone through the whole professional side through his career, and I'm sure there were many bridges burnt by several creators along the way. We also, in that very short history, have had a number of creators that have, there's some very talented people, but at the end of the day, we're all different personalities. And if you go out into the wide world, there's a lot of personalities that don't get on. And then there's a lot of personalities that then can't actually work together. So, and what you'll see is that happens within comics, it happens within every single part of life. And you'll see people have left us along the way. We're in a really nice place now where we've got a vision, we've got the way that we want to deal with people, and we've got people around us, I think, who buy into it. We kind of term it the 77 family.
Right.
And it kind of pulls together, and we're all rowing in one direction. And it's really good. And I think that's what you see come out in the product. There's no sort of sniping, there's nothing else going on. It's just a bunch of people, talented people, that all want to go in the right direction, and they all want to make something of this, and they're willing to give their time and energy and passion, which, how can it fail?
Oh, by the way, that segue I did purposely to get.
Yeah, right on.
I totally did that. That was me. Vicky?
Well, I just have to say that I agree with that. From a creative perspective, it's always difficult when we all have our personalities, and when we're creating things that we are creating. We have our visions of what we want our end product to look like. And when you're doing a collaboration, then you have to be able to do that give and take. And it's always hard when you're working with somebody who is not on that same page, and they want it their way, no changes, no adjustments, no making it fit. And I imagine it's got to be really frustrating from even the comic book perspective, that if you don't have the people on the same page, it's just chaos, and not good chaos.
It's just really hard to get where you want to get, I think, isn't it? So it's just too many obstacles sometimes. So
I can only imagine just how difficult it must be, or was, in the days where potentially the house team, the artists or the house artists or whoever, were in the same office. We're online.
Yeah.
Steve and I meet every couple of years. Maybe we'll do that a lot more next couple of years. Bully and I, sorry. And Steve MacManus, we meet up. But I can't imagine if you've got a working relationship and it's going through its ups and downs, what it must be like when you got to go back to the office tomorrow and there's something which is brewing. I don't know. I have no reference to that whatsoever. So I feel as an editor, and as a commissioner that, a well-worded email, which I'll check with the guys first. I don't just fire them off, and how we deal with issues. We talk as a team first, and then we'll consider it. And I often find the best way to deal with something, to be honest with you, if it's exterior, radio silence. Honestly.
Yeah. I definitely enjoy the separation, and when you're not being in the same room with people, and it's a lot easier to kind of keep things calm. Maybe your video doesn't work on Zoom today. Yeah. I was never a big believer in phones with video, and now we all have them. Yeah. And because I like to be able to roll my eyes when I'm talking with somebody who's an idiot, and I don't want them to see that I'm rolling my eyes.
It's a good point.
Here we go. I think Mark's rolling his eyes right now. He's just
no. It's Hanukkah. It's Hanukkah, and I was just given a latke.
Bless you.
I love a good latke.
Wow. That's everybody.
Crispy.
That sounded like a good latke right there.
Now you have to share, honey.
Happy Hanukkah, everybody.
Happy Hanukkah.
I actually had a question about Blazer. It is so authentic, right? Very authentic to 1974, except for one thing. You've got creator credits on every story. Why? If you're going for the 74, no, I know why, but can you talk about that, Steve, about how credits weren't on work back then?
Yeah, sure. Well, in those days, the management didn't want the artist's name to appear for fear that the artist would be stolen by another company. They didn't care about the writers. But when 2000 AD came out, it was Kevin O'Neill who said, come on, we've got to acknowledge these guys. And he came up with the idea of a credit card, which I thought was quite smart. So that's the short answer. On Blazer, as I say, I see it as coming after Action Comic, maybe 2000 AD. So therefore, the precedent for a credit card had been set in that sort of fantasy world. And it was Andrew Richmond who came up with this great idea of the credit card being called Blazer Hot Shots, is it?
Right.
Basic. Yeah. So that ticks both boxes. It's authentic and it recognizes the creators.
Yeah. And also, I've got to remind people again, Bully did steal Steve MacManus' artist. Sorry, I've just got to put it out there.
The family.
If only you'd not known their name. If only you'd not known their name.
Family. It doesn't
matter. In the family. That's it. That's how we roll. And to be honest, it's a very interesting thing. So the origins of not printing the names in case they get stolen, and kind of the way we're working is we're breaking new artists and new creators, and I want them to go on to bigger and better things.
Definitely.
And I think it the universe rewards. I think if we promote our artists and they get on, and I can't wait for one of our artists or writers to hit Marvel or DC, etc. And then the sky's the limit for the light shining on us as well, I think.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, I've got to say, sorry.
I was just going to say that's a very interesting concept, because when you go back to the 40s, 50s, 60s, the number of people who didn't get credit for things that they did that are just now, like Bob Kane would not let anyone touch Batman, and it was his, even though he came up with maybe 5% of it. And
you're talking about Bill Finger?
Yep.
Yeah.
And only now you see his name on things that some of the injustices of the 40s through the 80s is finally getting fixed, where we're recognizing these amazing, talented people. They're artists, they're designers, they're writers, and they are fabulous in their own right. I know people who think that Stan Lee wrote every single Marvel comic, and even he didn't take that kind of credit.
No.
And
well, but the Marvel way of making comics back then, where they would discuss it, then someone like Jack Kirby would draw all of it, then would go back to Stan, and Stan would come up with the words to the story. So it was a conglomerate. It was
very collaborative.
Yeah.
But I like the fact that I feel like the people who are actually doing it, and having known some artists personally who would do their own little comics and sell them at the little local Comic-Cons, and it just it's about time that everybody got their due. And I love the way that every single one of your stories in these anthologies, it recognizes the people who did the work.
They own and maintain the IP.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's such a modern way of thinking.
Yeah, because back in the day, 2000 AD, and all the comics, not only did they have the names, but they signed their artwork and the stories to Fleetway or to any of the companies that owned it. They basically, I read that they had to sometimes sign their check stating that they gave away all the rights to it, and so when they published reprints or they made the trade paperbacks, they got absolutely no money from it, and that sucks.
That's awful.
That's the way it was, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
I got this notion about the Apex volumes that Rebellion are currently working through the artists.
Yeah.
So Brian Bollins is going to be hitting the bookshops, I think, in a month or two.
Oh, okay.
Then there's going to be a Mcmahon. But the interesting what's happened here is, as Rebellion put out a huge request for original artwork, all the stories started emerging. Brian Bollin felt he could start talking about how much artwork was stolen.
Right.
And as people started putting artwork together, sending original high def scans, obviously people started getting information about who'd got them and where they come from. And on our 1977 group, I can mention it, I can't remember the guy's name, but we had this query, someone saying, yeah, I've got some artwork to sell. And the artist got in touch, and John Wagner got in touch saying, could you find out just a little bit more for us, please? And we helped solve only one of those pages where they'd ended up. But there were literally, Brian Bollin's written quite a lengthy piece on it at the moment. And the guy's owed hundreds and hundreds of pages, legitimately, which are his, which was stolen. And, you know, here we are 40 years later, and it's still going through the machine, isn't it?
Yeah.
So the fact is, it's changed. The world's changed. It's digital now, isn't it? But a few of our artists are analog. They do the original work, and it's so lovely to see that. We can offer pages on the Kickstarter. They'll do sketches as well. And we had two fantastic artists at the convention we went to. So Ben McLeod, big hello, and Andrew Sawyers. And we feel we can name people like that who, either were legitimately printed and published artists. So Ben McLeod worked 2000 AD, like 20 years ago, did a few strips. Life interfered. He had to then take over, I think, a family business.
Right.
You know, that kind of story. But Andy Sawyers, he's got a full-time job, and I think he's on his way to huge things, really. Is already appearing in a lot of the covers. He's doing cover work and such like, and is totally sold on us. Absolutely, absolutely solid with us. But it's a pleasure. Just and Steve, I believe you want to mention Aid as well. So
so what you've got. So where I said it as well, we support the artists and stuff on their other endeavors. So we've got thousands of people on our Facebook groups, and if you do any work on the 77. And you work elsewhere, we're happy for you to promote that work through the groups as well to everybody that's there. And what Ben was just alluding to there, so alongside Ben McLeod and Andrew Sawyers, Aid Hughes, who draws V, he's also through there. He's working with Pat Mills at the moment on Space Warp. So he does one of the strips on there. We've got Mark Montague, who did the annual cover. He's worked doing pin-ups for 2000 AD. So again, you're going to see all the other work these guys are doing. Andrew Sawyers is working on Shift, which is a publication from via Adrian Get My Comics, which we work very closely with them. So we're happy to promote them guys. So it's just about community, really.
Yeah. Speaking of Shift, for some reason, when I went to the Cove, which was a distributor that you were using to get out the annual, I found that I had a free issue of Shift issue 1. How'd that happen?
So what we did is we gifted everybody. So you also would have got a free issue of the 77 issue 5.
Right. Well, except I had one, but that was there too. That was there too. Yeah.
It was as we set up the Cove with Get My Comics. made a decision to share some, to gift some additional publications to those who had supported us. So maybe we should have made more of a comment on that, I think.
Yeah, I've been.
You can do that. Absolutely. It's still up there. It's still up there.
Yeah, I've actually been looking to try Shift Out, and you made it possible. That's kind of cool.
Yeah,
very cool. Well, we're gonna go right now. We had a nice discussion, but I'm gonna let everyone have a chance to say their last words, and if they want to plug anything besides what we're plugging already. I'm gonna let Steve MacManus go first. Any closing words?
Just to say thanks very much. Hello to all my friends in the States, and stay safe.
All right. Anything to plug other than Blazer?
Go on, Steve. The day job.
Your day job.
Sorry. No. I think just whatever you're doing, buy a comic. It's good stuff. Any comic, it's good for you.
Yeah, I agree. Let Bully go next. Bully?
Cool. I'd just like to say it's been lovely to visit America for an hour and a half. And go grab the annual. Thank you very much. Go grab the annual, the77comic.net. It's a purchase. I'm sure you won't regret it. See how we do it in Britain.
It was really good.
Come and support Blazer through the Kickstarter at the moment. Another comic you won't regret. That's it. I plugged it as well. And thanks for having me on the show, Mark.
You took Benksy's part there talking.
No, not at all. Because I'm all about giving. I'm giving.
That's right. You're all about giving. Yeah.
I'm about giving. So, guys, issue 5 of the 77. Just email us, the77comic@gmail.com, or you can message us through the 77 Comic group on Facebook. Just say hi there. We'll sort it out, and we'll send you a free digital, and you can have a really good look. It's I think it's a good introduction to where we got to, and we're moving forward. I just want to say thank you for having us on, Mark and Vicky. It's been an absolute pleasure. I want to wish everyone happy holidays, and hope you have a peaceful end to the year. And looking forward to 2022.
Yeah, 2022. Hopefully that'll go much better than the past 2 years.
Hey, and maybe we'll see you guys. I don't know. We're talking San Diego. Where are we talking?
Okay.
Where are we going to catch up?
San Diego Comic-Con?
I don't know. Where are we going to catch up?
That would be cool. Yeah. Vicky, any last words?
I'm just so glad that we had you guys. This has been an absolute blast. And it's always nice to find more people like me out there in the world.
Yay.
Yay.
Yeah, I was actually introduced to the 77 when Benksy gave out free copies of, was it issue 1 or when issue 4?
Probably, yeah.
Issue 1. We had a choice of getting 1, 2, 3, or 4, and I chose 1 because I'm a completist. I want to start with it, and once I got that, I digitally got everything after that. I've been supporting. I know that I backed Blazer 2 already, which is completely back now, but keep giving. Go to Kickstarter.com, type in Blazer or Blazer number 2, NO2, and you'll be able to sign on that. It's until December, 11th or 21st?
21st.
21st?
The shortest day.
Oh, yeah, it would be the shortest day. So do it before the shortest day ends, because then you're then you can go to getmycomics.com or go to, what is it, the 77 Comic.net. Thank you. Oh, God, that was a brain fart. Ooh, that's the worst word we had. We had bog before. Now we have fart. What's going on? We're going to get kicked off the air.
We're getting X-rated.
Oh, no. So on behalf of myself, and thank you very much to Benksy, Bully, and Steve MacManus, hope you enjoyed listening to the Mark Who 42's podcast here on Geekcast Radio Network, markwho42.com, or all around the net. Like on Audible. You can listen to us on Audible if you have the Amazon app. Until next time, bye, everyone.
Bye.
Take care, guys.
Take care.
Bye.
Thanks, guys.
Stay lucky.
Cheers.
Thanks for listening to Mark Who 42's Universe with hosts Mark Baumgarten, Eduardo M. Fryer, Zion Quiros, and Vicky Jakubowski. This program was produced and directed by Mark Baumgarten. If you'd like to get in touch with us, please go to our Facebook page or email us at markwho42s.universe@gmail.com. You can listen to old shows at our website, markwho42.com, or even our YouTube page, Markwho42. Markwho42's Universe, copyright 2021.